San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on! Get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer, and we're going to be here with Brian Alvarez for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling, and we have so many subjects to talk about. I have a feeling that this 2 hours is going to go way too fast. We already have every single phone line lit up. We're also going to be joined in a half an hour by Jim Cornette, so we can talk about WWF developmental or WWE developmental. As far as we can talk about pretty much anything going on. I got Survivor Series was last Sunday. We can talk about 5 title changes. Shawn Michaels and Big Show as world champions. UFC, Tito Ortiz pretty much destroyed Ken Shamrock on Friday night. Pride going on pay-per-view right as we speak. We can talk about Tough Enough. We can talk about Vince Russo. We can talk about, God, like almost anything going on. There's a lot going on. Brian, what's going on with Pride right as we speak?
I am watching a battle between Ninja and Arona that is really something to see. Ninja's, his cardio is always so good, and Arona is actually hanging in there, which surprised me. But these guys are going like, imagine like the first minute of a real hot match going about 15 minutes now. So
yeah.
They are just killing each other.
What's happened so far on the show?
The first match was Venetian versus Yokoi, which was really boring. In fact, it was so boring they cut out the first round and aired second round, which it went quickly. And then it was Randleman versus Yamamoto, where Randleman tried for, 10-minute round and 2 5-minute rounds?
Yeah.
So 15 minutes he tried to get a key lock and was unsuccessful, to the point where I was praying that he would be triangled and beaten. And finally in the third round, he took the north-south and gave these knees to the head, where he actually went into it like a handstand first and then dropped these knees down. And it was quite brutal, and the ref stopped it. So far, so good.
You know, I saw Kevin Randleman. He just wrestled. He did his first pro wrestling match last Sunday, and at the W1 show. And talk about a guy with pro wrestling potential. That guy, I mean, he has springs in his legs.
Oh, yeah, that's what he did after the match. He was just jumping up and down to celebrate, and it was like he was jumping so high that he could have cleared the top rope.
Yeah, he was out there with Mark Coleman, and they did as a ring entrance. They come out together, and they're like beating on each other, and they remind me very much of when Brock Lesnar and Shelton Benjamin teamed in OVW, for obvious reasons, because it's like the exact same kind of a tag team.
Yeah.
2 college teammates, muscular black guy and, beast white guy. And, so they're in there, and, like, Kevin's behind Mark Coleman, and he just leapfrogs right over him. And, every time he came in, he hopped over. I mean, he was green as hell, as you would expect for, a first-time match. But this guy's athletic potential was unbelievable. Anyway, we got to go to a commercial break. We're going to start taking phone calls in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
You listen to Dave and Brian here on the Sports Byline Radio Network, the Wrestling Observer. If you smile like the brain, you'll do it.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And, before we go on, I want to make mention that Billy Joe Travis passed away, and we really have no other details of that. Just that I guess it would have happened probably yesterday or today. And have you heard anything more since on that, by the way, Brian?
No, nothing.
Okay, but he was actually quite a good worker in the I guess the late '80s. Jeff Jarrett and Billy Travis against Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka. They had some awesome matches in the Memphis territory, and he pretty much was one of those swerve guys that was always in trouble, pretty much his whole life. In fact, probably the most famous Billy Travis story of all. Do you know the story about when he got arrested on television?
I don't think so, actually.
This would have been on Memphis television.
Oh, was this just like 2 or 3 years ago?
I think it was way further back than that. I'm thinking 6 or 7 years ago. I don't remember the exact.
Was it child support?
Yes, it was child support.
This was like probably 3 or 4 years ago, because I remember writing about this. So it couldn't have been too long ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you might. I think it was Randy Hales was running the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. It probably was just, yeah. So anyway, just for those of you who don't know the story, he was, he had disappeared, I guess, or he was wanted for some child support. Nobody could find him. And, he was hiding out. And, the best way to hide out is to be on a highly rated television show on Saturday morning. So anyway, he was wrestling in Memphis for a couple of weeks, and I think that it was in another city where the show was syndicated. I don't think it was in Memphis itself when this happened. But anyway, the woman who was looking for him for child support goes, "Oh my God, there he is on TV!" Alerted the police, and that Saturday morning, the police came and got him, and Jerry Lawler just made it a wrestling angle. He goes, "Hey, why don't you just do it right on the air?" And they hauled him off right on the air.
Yep.
True story. And I never believed that, when it first happened, because, I was told, oh, yeah, the police hauled him off and it was a shoot. And I was thinking, yeah, right. But it wasn't.
It was.
Yeah. I thought Friday night was a breakthrough show. I thought that UFC, it's one of those things that's been teetering up and down for about 10 years. And I thought that maybe Friday night was the show that really put it on the map for good.
Yeah. This was a show where the curse was really going to hit.
I know.
And it didn't, and I was so happy.
Yeah.
Ken Shamrock got killed, and I was humbled.
Yeah, well, I was really sad watching it. And, it's funny because we just talked before the show, and we both knew at the exact same moment when they cut backstage and they showed Tito Ortiz warming up on those, kneeing those things and all that, and I was going, oh, my God, I just hope Ken lasts the first round.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? With hindsight being 20/20, and I really should have known this because I printed an entire excerpt last week of Kurt Angle talking about when he went back to the Olympic Training Center.
It's funny. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, and how
you're reading my mind.
How awesome all these guys were today, as opposed to just a few years ago, and how much the sport had changed and everything like that.
And this sport has changed more than wrestling.
Yeah. And as soon as Ken was just getting destroyed in there, I thought back to that interview and I thought, I probably should have learned something from that, but I didn't.
And you know what? Kurt Angle better not come back.
I know. That's the other thing I was thinking. If he goes back, unless, actually, I don't even know what. I mean, it's not like he was. I mean, he was winning via decision. He wasn't just going out there and killing guys and pinning them in seconds.
But he's been. It's 6 years removed from competition. Yeah. You can't go back from 6 years. I don't want to say you can't, and he is an exceptional athlete, but it is so tough.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that on the Kurt Angle front, why I think he shouldn't do it more than anything else is because his back and his knee and all that are shot from the pro wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was 100%, maybe, but he's not going to go back 100% because he's had too many of those nagging injuries. Mike, also, last night in Confidential, which was a forgettable show, and for those of you who didn't watch it, do not seek out a tape because the most exciting thing was Kurt Angle and the shopping spree. But they did show Kurt Angle's moonsault, in that cage match with Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
And, Kurt talked about that recently and said how stupid it was. And you know what? That was stupid.
That was really, really stupid.
I mean, I watched that landing from so far up there and everything, and it's like, man, that's how he first hurt his knee. That was stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway. Let's see. We should probably start getting to phone calls. Okay, as soon as someone hangs up, there will be an open line. We're going to start with John in Chicago. John, we're going to talk about, I guess, Survivor Series. What's up?
Hello?
Hey there.
John.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
It's going really good.
Dave, I was going to mention on that with Confidential there because I had never seen the extreme close-up that they did on the moonsault there that he did on that from that cage.
Yeah.
Because I think when they showed it on Raw, they didn't do the extreme close-up because that looked really. I mean, you talk about his knees. You talk about. I mean, he could have broke his arm there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is, they didn't even show Benoit doing the headbutt from the top of the cage a few minutes later after that.
Yeah. Well, they had to show more of Tess wedding with Stephanie McMahon. So.
Hey, hold on. How did they go from a shopping spree to showing him doing a moonsault off a cage?
I don't know. I'd lost interest in that show so quickly. I just remember that I'm losing interest, and there's Kurt Angle doing that moonsault off the cage out of nowhere, somewhere. How did they? They're doing like Best of Raw or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were showing Best of Raw with the best moments in the history of Raw, and they showed the test wedding with Stephanie.
The other thing about that, Dave, before I get onto the Survivor Series thing, is that when they were showing the test wedding with Stephanie, and I was looking at that angle, and and then 3 years later we get the necrophilia angle. At least something came out of that angle.
No. You know what? Not only did something come out of it, but I actually thought it was pretty funny watching it back years later.
Right.
Where Stephanie's drugged, and they're going to that wedding chapel, and it's so absolutely corny. I happen to like that.
Well, I know the big thing was, people were always thinking, where was the Test Triple H feud after that?
Yeah, he beat him with a pedigree about 2 weeks later and never went anywhere, which was kind of wow.
But the thing that came out of that is
he finally cut his hair, so it's okay now.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing that came out of that was at least it gave them like 6 months worth of storylines there, with the Triple H and Stephanie, dominating the organization.
Not only that, it started their real romance.
Right.
Look at where that led us to today.
That's right. It's going to lead us to a wedding, and he's going to be owning that company when it goes out of business in a few years.
That's the scary thing about it. But after Survivor Series and everything, I really felt I was let down by the Elimination Chamber thing.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't think, I don't understand why, when I was listening to the guys, being interviewed about that, why they weren't given time to, play, decide on moves or get used to the cage, because it seemed, from the interviews, it seemed like that was the first time
It was. Yeah, that's the first time.
Stepped in there.
Yeah.
And, that may have prevented the Rob Van Dam injuring Triple H, inadvertently. There could have been, maybe, I don't want to say that they planned out spots and everything like that, but you could have had more, maybe improvisation like Rob Van Dam did with the Spider-Man, spots and, do more stuff, because I really didn't think, compared to Hell in the Cell, War Games, I don't think they did enough with that cage.
Actually, to be perfectly honest, watching that, I don't really think that getting in the cage would have made much of a difference at all, because I know that Hunter was not going to lay down there and let Rob try a frog splash before the show just to see if it was going to hurt him.
No, you know what I'm saying? It didn't seem like they were just feeling it out. They were, to me,
there were certain things that they could have practiced that would have maybe made it a little bit better, but
I thought it was, it was too dangerous of a match, but I did think it was a great match.
Actually, you know what? I was reading the Observer, and I think that a lot of the bumps that they were taking on the steel were not very bad at all.
Really?
I saw a lot of guys that were making sure that they were hitting their feet first, and there were a couple that were landing flat on the steel, which didn't look comfortable.
Well,
the majority looked pretty safe.
Sean, you could tell from Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, he was being really, really, really careful.
Right, yeah, on that and everything. So, but the other thing I wanted to ask about was, where do you see the tag team situation now? It seems like they've decided to build things back up again. They're introducing maybe John Cena and, Bull Buchanan are going to be a tag team.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be a top tag team.
But it does seem they're putting more emphasis back on the belts there.
On the SmackDown side, they will, because that's Paulie's mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So they will. John, we got to get running, okay?
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go to Tom in Atlanta. Tom, what's going on?
2 quick questions.
Yes.
Number 1, is Molly Holly in the doghouse because she hasn't been appearing on Raw?
She's odd woman out. The feud is Victoria and Trish, and that's really the only deal.
Uh-huh. And I want to address this to Brian. Brian, what do you think? Do you think that the current crop in Tough Enough really gets what it means to be a professional wrestler, given the
Well, Nick sure didn't last week.
The guy with the tennis elbow, the number of people who have dropped out, and I just see all these people hanging around the house, playing pool, talking like it's real world. And I just go back to, stories of, Mick Foley, sleeping in his car to become a...
Well, that's one has nothing to do. One has nothing to do with the other. I think that the guys like Matt, those guys I think are pretty serious, and they're picking it up. But some of them, there's a lot of head cases on this show.
Yeah, and one of my complaints is that they're showing way too much of the house stuff to the point where people think that they're not actually doing any work.
And then they actually are probably working like crazy.
Killed in there, but they just don't show that on TV because it has to be an MTV show.
Yeah.
Right. Good night.
All right, we're going to go ahead and do a break right now. We'll be back right after this. We'll have Jim Cornette up in about 7 minutes. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And if you want to get either of these publications, you can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com, and there's information on how to subscribe to both the Wrestling Observer newsletter and Figure 4 Weekly. In fact, previews of each issue for this week are up in the feature section right now. And, Brian, I got to say one thing about Figure 4. Who better than Canyon? That was tremendous.
I hope that wasn't one that only me, you, and about 10 other people thought was funny.
Oh, I thought that was really good. Can we spill the beans on what that is?
I don't know if it comes off fine in over the radio as opposed to in print, but you can try.
You know what? You're right. You're going to have to order it because it is. I know it comes off funny in print.
Okay.
That was tremendous.
And we have specials on the website this week for those that have either not subscribed or haven't subscribed in a while. So special rates up there on the website.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that spoof on the that top 500 was pretty funny too. Actually, there's a lot of spoofs in the figure 4 every week.
Yes.
Actually, there's
some that only me and you will get, but I don't care.
And there's some in the Observer that very few people get too. They think I'm being unintentionally funny, and I'm just writing it at that moment. What's going on with Pride?
We just saw the Fedor versus Herring match.
Oh, I heard that was really good.
Yeah, I actually have no idea how Fedor won because I left for a minute and I came back and he had his arm raised.
I think it was a blood stoppage.
Okay. Really? Because Herring did not look very bloody.
Yeah, but well, the same thing with the thing. I think it's where the cut is and things like that.
Yeah. That thing about last night with Shamrock, he looked like
oh my God,
Takayama after Don Fry got done with him. Maybe not quite that bad, but what a beating he took.
Oh, he took a beating. That was so sad. I don't even want to watch him fight again, although I guess he may have to.
Yeah.
But oh boy.
Yeah.
Boy, I mean. I don't even want to watch Frank fight now. He took such a bad beating. I don't even want to watch Guy Metzger fight.
See, that's the thing with Frank is, look at how long he's been out.
Let's see, when was Frank's last?
It's been at least a few years, hasn't it?
His last fight was his last NHB fight or mixed martial arts fight was the Elvis Sinisic fight.
That was pure K1 though, right?
No. The K1 fight was with what's that guy's name? Shannon Rich, which was a joke.
Yeah.
So his last real fight would have been with Elvis Sinisic, and that would have been at the end of 2000?
Yeah.
So we're talking 2 years.
If I were him, I would quit when I was ahead.
Yeah, I think he would, except he's a fighter.
Yeah.
So he won't. Let's go to Jeffrey in Long Island. Jeffrey, what's going on?
Yeah, hey, what's up? First time caller. I got a question about something I was reading in the Luthez book.
Uh-huh.
Just to clarify something, Luthez said he was talking to this New York writer while they were watching a match with I think it was some boxer, I forget his name, but
Primo Carnera maybe. No, or maybe it was Primo Carnera, I bet.
Maybe. Well, this is relevant at this point, but he said that the writer gave when he was writing this, it said in there that basically the writer knew that it was wrestling was orchestrated. How can that be if at that time it was still kept under wraps? I think if you look at newspaper stories in the late 1800s, the newspaper stories are written. It's very clear the writers knew that wrestling was orchestrated, and I've seen the stories from 1880.
Or not all of them, but some of them.
Yeah, well, a lot of them.
Yeah,
a lot of them. And I mean, even all this, it was not okay. A lot of people today that weren't around think that up until whatever it was, 1983, that everyone in the world or whatever year it was when Vince McMahon said it, that nobody knew, and it was stuff people knew, but the wrestling business never flaunted it in public on television. Which is
some of the early works that they had in Pride, which have never come out, but we know their works.
Yeah, a lot of people do, Takada and Mark Coleman.
Yeah.
Which actually is a funny story because I was just watching one of the Japanese television shows, and they were talking about that match. And they were interviewing Mark Coleman, and they were showing clips of the match. And Mark Coleman's sitting there going he was the better man on that day. And I hate to give excuses, but my wife was in the hospital. I didn't train properly for that match. I just started cracking up. Oh, it's just too much.
And like Randleman, where he didn't make any comment last time about how he was sick, so he made sure to mention it this time.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to make a note that one of your writers, Mark Kaufman, said something incorrect. He said Tito's only victory loss was against Frank Shamrock. That's not true.
Oh yeah, he lost to Guy Metzger in his second fight.
Early in his career.
Yeah, second pro fight. Guy Metzger choked him out. That's true.
Another question. I was at Survivor Series. I was watching it obviously at Survivor Series. I noticed RVD when he did his frog splash. He landed on his feet and it looked like he hurt his leg. And then I saw him. He got pinned right after. Was that something that was? No, that was
Triple H was the one who got hurt. Rob Van Dam was fine. That was just
a storyline to get.
That was a storyline to get him out of the match.
Oh, he was selling it. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
he looked like he really hurt himself.
Yeah. Well, that's what he's supposed to make you think.
Yeah. I guess one last question. When Brock Lesnar lifted up Big Show, that was like all his that was all him. I mean, would you say that Brock Lesnar is probably one of the strongest guys in athletics?
Absolutely. Wouldn't you say that? I would think that there's some of the guys that are in like those World's Strongest Man contests.
Like Nathan Jones, would he be able to be like as stronger than Nathan Jones? I mean,
it depends on what kind of strength. If Brock Lesnar and Nathan Jones were squaring off and pushing each other like wrestling style, he would tear Nathan Jones apart. When if it came to lifting weights, Nathan Jones would probably beat him.
Well, when you think about it, I think Kurt Angle mentioned that he once squatted like 500 something. And that's basically what, and I mean, you know, Brock wasn't even squatting Big Show. He was just getting him on his shoulders like a fireman's carry, so.
Well, Brock squatted 750.
Not to take away from the feat of strength. But
Brock has done has squatted 750.
Yeah, so.
Which is a lot of weight. I mean, you know, that's pretty much, you know, world-class powerlifter kind of strength.
Do you think if Brock entered like the UFC and if he learned some finishers and let's say the Lions Den or even Team Punishment, do you think he would be like, do you think, I mean, I don't even know if he could, he would have to probably go into the 200 level, but do you think he would be a pretty good fighter?
If he could learn to not flinch when he got hit and learn a little bit of punch defense, he would be really, any top wrestler, if they can learn some of the other skills, I think the wrestling's a great base because, you know, the wrestlers of his caliber, you know, if you look at the ones that have come in, most like Mark Kerr, Mark Coleman, they've done very, very well in UFC. So, you know, there's no guarantee it's not wrestling, but
anything can happen.
But it's a great base to start with, and you know, at 25 years old, if he went to the right camps, trained for a year, and then got in it, I think that he would be very scary for just about anyone. Because look, I mean, if you look at the heavyweights in UFC, I mean, of those guys, who's gonna be able to handle him? Because like, you know,
Cabbage.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like even like Rico Rodriguez, okay, because Rodriguez is primarily a wrestler, and he's not a wrestler of the caliber of Brock Lesnar.
Maybe Bob Sapp.
Well, that's an interesting kind of a fight. And a lot of people have actually talked about that. And I do think that Brock Lesnar would have a shot because he's a better wrestler than Bob Sapp. And I also think that Bob Sapp would have a shot because I know that Bob Sapp can both take a punch and deliver a punch, which we don't know about Brock Lesnar.
Actually, this is my last question, and I'm definitely done. Shamrock, a lot of people are making question that, you know, Shamrock, that Castillo destroyed him. Even though a lot of people forget that Shamrock actually got a couple hits on him, on Tito. But I mean, do you think? Because I think that Shamrock wasn't just really didn't prepare, because they said on the air that you can't prepare for Tito, and I kind of think that's correct because I really believe that Shamrock, if he knew, I think if Shamrock faced Tito again, I think Shamrock could have a better chance at winning. I think
Ken's too old. Yeah, I don't think he could beat him. He trained really, really hard. I'm sure Tito Ortiz trained harder, and I think that was very clear. But
it shouldn't be a question of age because
it is fighting age. You know, when you're past 35 and fighting, it's your reflex is slow. I mean, it's just unavoidable. I mean, all of those guys over 35. I mean, when I watched that fight, the biggest fear I had for Ken Shamrock was the fact that he was old. You know, I mean, his body looks great, but it's not the same thing.
But has the sport changed, martial arts, has it changed that much where a guy like, you know, I think it's Helio Gracie, I think he had like a 3-hour match with one of his students, and he was like, you know, elderly. I mean, he was still,
it's so different now when you throw in the striking and the higher class of kickboxers and everything like that. What those guys did in the 50s and 40s, you know, with Helio Gracie, it's just not even the same thing.
So, like, if someone like Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan were to enter the UFC, they'd pretty much get their ass kicked.
Oh yeah, for sure, they'd get destroyed. Okay.
All right, that's it.
All right, we're gonna go to Louisville. Jim Cornette.
Hey, I'm just wondering if Jackie Chan came to OVW for 6 months, do you think he could go in there and whip ass in the UFC?
No, but he might be able to go to the WWE.
Well, there you go. How are you guys?
We're doing really good. I guess you know, we've been watching your tapes and everything, and you're kind of on a roll these days.
Well, yeah, the November TVs have really been good. We had Kurt Angle in for that great match with the Damager. They went almost 20 minutes, and it was just phenomenal. And then the taping Wednesday night, Eddie Guerrero and Nova was just tremendous, and the Run for the Rumble series with all those guys. November TV, by the way, is available, as are they all, on the website, obwrestling.com. $20 a month you can subscribe. But anyway, No, I've really been pleased with the TV lately, and the matches have been great, and we're filling up the building every week, so it's just, it's a whole different atmosphere.
Okay, we are going to go head to a break right now. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk a lot with Jim Cornette, plus take your phone calls. Our lines are lit up. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're here with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly for 2 hours every Sunday night from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time. We're going right head-to-head with the Pride pay-per-view, and we'll be getting to an update on that. And, of course, Jim Cornette is here for the rest of the show, so it's guaranteed this is going to be an exciting show.
Yay!
Yes. Brian, real quick, where are we at on the show?
Nogueira just beat Schilt with a triangle.
Nogueira just beat Schilt. How was that?
Looked pretty good. It wasn't like Semi took a beating, so he can take a beating from Bob Sapp.
Yeah, it may very well happen in 2 weeks. Jim.
Yes.
Have you heard anything new on Billy Travis since this afternoon?
No, I haven't actually. Like I said, we had talked earlier, just one of the fans here in town had called me and said they'd heard the news, and really that's all that I've been able to find out so far. But, it's coming from several different places, so it seems like there's some credibility to it.
What's the status with before I actually ask this question about Nick Dinsmore, which is what I'm going to ask. Brian, did you see, because I know that you saw the show where they did the sit-down with Nick Dinsmore after the injury.
Yeah.
What did you, because I thought that was, I loved that television.
Yeah, it was good, and I just felt bad for Nick because Jim's talking about every spot where he hurt his knee and showing them all on the big screen, and there's poor Nick sitting there going, yeah, I screwed up there, oh, that hurt.
Yeah, well, it kind of happened in stages, and we went back and showed the stages of the injury because it happened early in the match, but he was able to work through a lot of it, and then it just kept getting worse. And his condition right now, he had surgery on his knee this past Tuesday a week ago at Jewish Hospital in Louisville, and, it was this past week. And great doctor here in town. It was just orthoscopic surgery. There wasn't a need to go in with a scalpel. And some torn cartilage, the meniscus had been damaged, and he's going to be out probably until, I would say, the first part of January.
Okay.
But it's not as bad as it could be, and that's a blessing for all of us because Nick obviously is one of the top guys in OVW, and it'd be hard to do without him for a long period of time.
You know, one thing, when you put Damaja over for the OVW championship a couple of weeks ago, and you actually we talked about this, but I could see it on the show. When you put him over, some people are going to know where I'm getting at on this. The next week, it wasn't like, oh my God, what's our next main event? Now what do we do? I mean, you had like 6 guys ready.
Well, the thing is, Damaja has really come on the last month. We had to run for the Rumble Series because we got the opportunity from the WWE for one of our guys to go to the Royal Rumble.
Did you get to choose?
And be in the Royal Rumble match. And
who got to choose that?
Well, actually, I just asked, if we could have an entrant in the Royal Rumble, and they said yes. They were kind enough to do that. So I said, okay, who's our 5 top guys, which I consider the 5 all-around best talents in the company to be Rob Conway, Nick Dinsmore, Machine, Damaja, and Nova. And so we just put a little elimination tournament together and had a main event match for every week's TV. And I think everybody can tell it's Damaja's time because he has really come on. His personality, his promos, but also in the ring, he stayed with Kurt Angle every step of the way, and I think he's the guy that deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
Machine is a tremendous wrestler, but he's already on the road most weekends with the WWE. He's kind of in the middle. He's not really here full-time, but he's not there full-time. And, they've looked at Nick and Rob, and Nova had a great match with Eddie Guerrero, as I said, this past week. So, Damaja has really come on, and the great thing about it is, regardless of what he does, the people gradually started to cheer for him, to react to him in a more major league way because not only was he winning these matches and going to the Rumble, but he was in there with Kurt Angle and just tearing it up, and so it's been good for everybody.
How, since people are always going to ask us about this, how are Jackie Gata and Linda Miles doing?
Jackie and Linda are both doing great. They've each got different attributes. They're still green, obviously. They haven't been doing this very long, and the Tough Enough training is more, television shooting than training. But I think that Linda is going to be tremendous athletically, and Jackie is going to be wonderful in a valet or manager role.
I
don't see Jackie ever becoming a great wrestler, but she has wonderful camera presence. She looks great. She talks well, and I think she's she's like a reincarnation of a 21st century Sunny or something. I think Linda's going to be the one to do it in the ring.
I think that they ought to take those that blind date tape when they want to introduce her into the WWE and just do that, because I think that got her personality over better than almost anything that they introduce wrestlers with these days.
Well, you know what? I hate to admit this, but I was a brain surgeon when I set the VCR because that was our TV taping night, and Jackie's the only one that I haven't seen yet.
Oh, it was the star. It was the best one.
You were saying it in the newsletter that it was the best one of the bunch.
Well, for your territory, it was because it made her out. It was consistent with her character.
I would have to say Jackie is Jackie.
Well, there you go. Let's go to the phone. Ed's been hanging on since the beginning of the show, wanting to talk to you, Jim. So let's go to San Antonio.
Hey guys, how's it going? Hey, Mr. Cornette, what I want to ask you is, I've been wanting to see, but I haven't had a chance, the DVDs that you did with Dave.
Right.
And, I know a lot of the matches were from the old Southwest territory, and what I would like to get is, since I'm here in San Antonio, I'd like to get your opinion of the territory and some of the wrestlers like Telly and Gino and Bruiser Bob Sweetan and the Sheep Herders and guys like that.
Well, I'll tell you, Tully and Gino, of course, were one of the great heel teams, and Tully then later on went to become even bigger in the Four Horsemen. San Antonio at one time was really a hot place for wrestling. It was a hot territory in more ways than one. hot temperature-wise, hot with the fans and the crowds, and hot with the wrestling. And, I always enjoyed going down there because the fans were always really into everything. But that was one heck of a territory, a violent territory for quite a while, but it was a good one.
Yeah, I remember one of the most violent things I ever seen was the angle with Luke Williams and Bobby Jaggers.
Oh my God, I was going to say that. These people reading my mind.
In fact, I remember that. That was probably been about 82, 83.
Yeah, about 83 with the arm sticking out, right?
Yeah, I was about 12 years old, and I swear to God, after I saw that match, I thought wrestling was real.
I think the guys that were in that match would probably agree with you at that particular point.
Yeah, they did some really brutal stuff in that territory. I remember, every week those guys would show up on TV, and there were other territories like this, but that was one of the bloodiest territories. And, I mean, just everybody comes out with all of that scar tissue week after week.
Yeah, there were some
in Texas. They can see better fights on the street than some places they have to pay to. So you really have to go the step further.
And Mr. Cornette, I'd also like to ask you about the progress of Matt Morgan. How's he doing? And how long you think it'll be before he'll get a shot with the WWE?
Well, Matt's doing great. You can't I can't sit here and say right now how long it would be, because one thing, you never know, and secondly, he really also started from scratch because he didn't even make it through the Tough Enough season because of that knee injury. So when he came in here, less than 6 months ago, I guess, he was really starting from scratch. So I think he's done really well. He's 7 feet tall or near, over 300 pounds. He's a good athlete. He pays attention. So I think he's going to be good. I just don't know. I think it's too soon to estimate when he might be called up because he really is starting from scratch.
Okay. Oh, guys, well, thanks for taking the call.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Thanks a lot.
I had a question for Jim. Do you have any idea why you make a guy like Prototype or Leviathan?
Uh-oh, not this one.
Go over, and then they go to WWF and they get a completely different gimmick and makeover.
Well, I don't know. I've many times sat and pondered that.
I've pondered that in the newsletter on a weekly basis.
I'll tell you, to be honest, I'm going to try not to knock too many people tonight. But
it's going to happen.
I think it just comes from, I'm a wrestling fan. I've always been a wrestling fan, and I can see people and see how a wrestling fan would like them and try to present it to them that way. It doesn't always work. A lot of times it does, but I think people who are not wrestling fans who get in the business, however they do, and, then get these positions of power or whatever, I don't think they fully understand what the people want to see, because ultimately it's the people buying the tickets, not the audience. I think that you try to capture with entertainment or whatever. I think it's the people buying the tickets. They'll be entertained by wrestling if it's good wrestling.
Yeah. Really quickly, you don't have to do it quickly at all, but you guys in February are doing a tryout camp. So if there's any independent wrestlers out there or anyone who's a prospective independent wrestler or wants to train at OVW, you're doing like a big 1-week camp.
Right. Well, as a matter of fact, how much time do we have before the next break?
We have plenty of time. We got like 3 or 4 minutes.
I want to tell you how this started out, and it won't be long. But I'm not really happy with a lot of wrestling schools these days because now there's some good ones, don't get me wrong, and I'm not going to mention people's names because then somebody'd say, well, why'd you leave me out? But there's a lot more bad ones. I'm not going to say any people's names because they probably know who they are. They're run by people who never had really any success in the business, or they're run by people who got disenchanted with the business, or they're run by people who just want to take people's money, and so there's a lot of guys paying $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 to train in these schools. And then they can work on that promotions shows, certainly, but these guys have no connections with the WWE. They really don't have any connections in the business, and so they can't place their people like they say they can. They'll tell you the moon, but so I'm upset about that. And also, there's a lot of great talent out there in the independents that doesn't have anybody to personally recommend them in the WWE, or they think they've got what it takes, and maybe they look in the mirror and they're wrong. They see something that's not there. Well, here's a chance for everybody to find out, because what we're going to do is we're going to have a week-long camp that's open to people who have never been trained or people who are already in the wrestling business. And the object is to get 50 people. We're going to limit it to 50 and run them through drills and evaluate them with interviews. And if they are already trained, let them have tryout matches with the best developmental talent, the Dinsmores and Conways and Damages and Machines, Novas. And basically, the WWE officials, somebody from Talent Relations will be down here every day. Danny Davis, the head instructor of OVW, will be part of it. I'll be a part of it. And we're going to see if we can find anybody with the potential to train, to learn to be good, or if we're going to find somebody that's already out there in the business but hadn't materialized yet. And we're charging everybody the same. It's going to be $995 for the week. And for that, you get a hotel room at a nice hotel right next to the school. The room and taxes paid. You get transportation to and from the school every day, and you get the day-long camp session or whatever. And we're going to try to find some talent. And then when we do, it depends on what level they're at as to how we proceed. If we feel that they haven't been trained or trained properly, but they've got potential, then we'll invite them to come to OVW and train, and we'll take the money they paid for the seminar off of their tuition. If we don't think they can make it and they got $5,000 in their hand, we're not going to take them because we're not going to have people move across the country and rip them off. If somebody's already in the business, then they would qualify, if they impress people, for either an available spot on the OVW roster to continue to improve and train with everybody and be on the shows, or who knows, they might even impress the WWE enough to get a developmental contract on the spot. Is there any unheralded talent out there? We're putting this out on the internet, and we're going to give everybody an opportunity, well, the first 50 actually, that I'm not taking anybody that's 5'2", I'm not taking anybody 41 years old or 137 pounds. We're going to try to find good prospects, 50 of them. We're going to go through the week, and we're going to see what comes out of it. And if anybody's interested in this, right now or any time in the future, they can go to the website, ovwrestling.com, just go to OVW Tryouts, and it's got the whole scoop. And hopefully, we're going to do kind of a star search thing and see if we can turn over some talent and then train them the right way in this business.
Okay, we're going to go ahead to a break right now. We're going to come back with your phone calls and more on Friday as well. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We got Jim Cornette, long-time wrestling fan since birth and in the wrestling business for roughly 20 years, now head of talent developmental talent, I guess, for WWE, the Ohio Valley territory. And, Brian, real quick, what's going on with the Pride show? Is Hiromitsu Kanehara still among the living?
He has been killed by Vanderlei Silva.
Okay, well, that didn't last long. I was afraid of that one. Okay, well, we know that. How did that go?
Well, that didn't take a lot longer to report, did it, than probably the fight took.
Actually, unfortunately, he did not get knocked out immediately, so he took a beating for about 5 minutes.
Okay. We're going to, actually, we should talk about this because we really don't have enough time to start with a new phone call. Any more notes as far as that fight goes?
There's nothing more to say. He punched him in the face a lot and kicked him, and then it was over. Don Fry's coming out right now. He's promised to break Yoshida's arm, so.
Oh, well. That is not a promise that lives up to happening. But, let's see. Well, Jim, real quick, as far as, now, what do you have coming up as far as, the next couple of weeks with OVW?
Actually, we're gearing up for our Christmas break. We really are only doing television tapings Next week we're off for Thanksgiving. Let all the guys spend time with their families, and then we come back for TV on Wednesday, December 4th, and obviously we're going to run classes for a couple of weeks, but mainly television tapings, the 4th, the 11th, and then a special Sunday taping on December 15th, and that gets us through the holidays. We're shutting down, give everybody 3 weeks off for Christmas so they can rest up. You know, we've had a lot of injuries that were, minor that guys worked through, but that gives them a chance to heal and spend some time with their family.
Okay, that's good, and we are going to be heading to our hourly break right now, so everyone hang on the line. We're going to start getting the phone calls in about 5 minutes. We've got Jim Cornette here, we got Brian Alvarez here, and we've got a lot more, including the main events on Pride and the end of some more careers, like Nobuhiko Takada is coming up in just a couple of minutes. Anyway, you're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Let's get it on!
Okay, welcome to the second hour here of Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez, the editor of Figure 4 Weekly, which I have not mentioned this yet, but it is the funniest thing you will read anywhere on professional wrestling. I highly recommend this thing. It's better than getting Mad Magazine or any kind of a comedy magazine, especially if you're a wrestling fan, because there's a lot of little things there, and you may not even like Lucha Libre, but the EMLL TV reports are hilarious. They're like the highlight of the newsletter some weeks, especially when you're talking about feuds that have been going on for 20 years and they're going to go on for another 20 years, like the Brazos and the Villanos. And of course we have Jim Cornette here, and we'll be talking about just WWE in general as well. But what's going on with the show right now, Brian?
Fry and Yoshida is still taking place, and I was scared to death because Fry came out in a karate gi. I thought they were going to have like a judo match, but thankfully that didn't happen, at least not yet.
Okay. We're going to go to Savannah, Georgia, and Chris. What's going on?
Not much, Dave. Brian, Jim, how are y'all doing tonight?
Fine, Chris. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm okay. Jim, I wanted to ask you a couple questions. Number one, and I like guys like Guido and Spanky, but don't get me wrong here, and I don't mean to stir the pot. Well, maybe I actually am. But don't you think do you feel maybe a little bit slighted when you have guys like Dinsmore, Conway, Nova, Machine, and all these maybe not necessarily homegrown talents, but your boys no less, that kind of get passed over? And it seems to me like Machine's been ready for a long time, and I'm just wondering your thoughts on that situation.
Well, I don't know that I feel slighted, but I do shake my head in bewilderment sometimes. No, actually, you hit the nail on the head, and that's what, unfortunately, a lot of fans have told me that I've spoken to, is that, well, these guys are better than those guys, these guys are as good as those guys, or whatever. That's the way they see it. I don't think they've been passed over. I just, the decision-making process sometimes for who goes and who stays or who is left behind or whatever makes me shake my head because it doesn't compute for me.
But, yeah.
Part of it may be that, there's a specific idea for some guy, and so therefore, nobody else in the world could do it. However, I'm trying not to knock anybody's name that you mentioned there, but Guido's a great wrestler, and Spanky, he's a good guy. Unfortunately, the Dr. Seuss hat, the baggy pants that split up the rear, and the fishy white no-tan 160 pounds don't really thrill me for a professional wrestler. To be honest with you, I don't think he's taking the business seriously, and I don't like that.
There you go.
I don't like anybody who doesn't take this business seriously that's trying to get a name in it. I almost fined one of our guys last night for wearing a baseball cap to the ring for a battle royal. I said, if the people don't take you seriously, you're not going to get anywhere, and if you don't take yourself seriously, then they don't care about you.
Jim, hold that thought right now. Chris, hold on, because we're going to get back to you right after this break. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Jim Cornette from Ohio Valley Wrestling, WWF Developmental Territory, and we are taking your phone calls for the next 45 minutes or so. We're here for 2 hours every Sunday night talking about pro wrestling, and we're going to go back to Chris. Chris, what's going on?
Not much. I mean, it just seems to me like, I mean, I'm trying to do the math in my head, and I'm trying to figure this out. And when you have a guy like Machine or Doug Basham or, my God, like Steve Bradley and Jerry Lynn for that matter, and if you can't find anything for these three individuals to do, I mean, I just don't understand what the thought processes are going. Because in my opinion, it seems like Machine's been ready for about a year now.
I think part of the problem is sometimes it's not wrestling people making the decisions about who's being brought up; it's writers.
And also,
was that the sound of a nail being hit on the head?
There was, the other aspect of that too is that if you just say, and then this is kind of what happened with Doug Basham. It's like they brought him up, but they had no idea of what to do with him, and it's probably just as well, not to bring him up and then put him on one of those B-team TV shows and beat him, rather than like, it's better when they come up with an idea for somebody. Or sometimes they've been slow with that too. So I don't know.
Well, and referring back to the previous call, I don't mind when someone is signed and goes to the roster from outside OVW. That's not a problem. We're developmental territory here, and we train guys for the future. There's already a lot of guys in the business, or some guys in the business, that deserve to be there that haven't made the connection yet. And, I don't mind if somebody leapfrogs the OVW talent. I just look at, let's sign the best talent. And if a guy gets signed and he's not better than the guys they've already got on contract, I'm wondering why that he goes there. But I have no problem, because I want the WWE to be better. I want the talent roster to be better. And it's the wrestling business that gets stronger. I think the best talent should be there. And I don't care where it comes from. If somebody comes along that can blow the OVW guys out of the water, they should get a job. But, it's up to individual choice. And like he just said, you shake your head sometimes, but I'm all in favor of the best talent getting there.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I got one more quick question for you, Jim. What are your opinions on, I just wanted to know your opinions on a few guys, American Dragon, Paul London, and Michael Shane, because I just read that they're all getting some sort of kind of match at a SmackDown taping in Dallas, Texas, and I think American Dragon's been through your way once, if I'm not mistaken. Possibly I am, but I was.
Well, he was in Memphis on a developmental deal. Truthfully, I didn't get to see that much of him. And with Paul London, I haven't seen him either, so I can't really, I don't want to give any opinions on these guys because I haven't seen him enough to be familiar. What I've seen of Michael Shane, he's a good athlete and he's a good wrestler and he's got a nice look, and. Once again, I'm not really familiar with his work to grade him, but I've been impressed with him when I've seen him.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Jim.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go to Ray in West Haven, Connecticut. Ray, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, guys? I just wanted to say before I say anything, happy holidays to all you guys out there.
Thank you very much.
Brian and Jim, by the way. My question, I just have a couple cool questions. When Roddy Piper was in the WWF in '87, you think he was getting more popular than Hulk Hogan, and that's the reason why he retired?
That's not the reason he retired. He retired for an angle. He was pretty close in popularity to Hogan. I think Hogan
was jealous of him. That's why he
jealous. That's a tough question. I mean, there's people who will say that. I don't know Hogan, to say that he was jealous, but Piper was closing in on him. Hogan had something that Piper didn't have, as far as a certain charisma. I mean, Piper was pretty darn close, but I don't think Piper would have ever leapfrogged him. Plus, Hogan was always going to be the guy with the belt, so in that sense, Hogan had nothing to worry about, as far as Piper. Hogan had nothing to worry about from anyone in that era because the bottom line is that he was McMahon's chosen guy who was going to have the belt, and everyone else was fighting for the number 2 spot. No one was fighting for the number 1 spot, including Piper.
Okay, I had 2 questions or comments from Mr. Cornette. One, Jim, what was it like working with Baby Doll in 1986? You had that injury angle with her with the tennis racket. Being that you're probably the first man ever to actually hit a woman in an angle. What's your thoughts on working with her in that angle? Were you nervous? Were you like...
Oh, well, no, actually, I don't even know I'm the first guy to hit a girl on wrestling television, but in this case, the girl was bigger than I was, so I didn't really feel bad about that. It was really great because, the people loved Baby Doll, and they hated us, and after that, they loved her more, and they hated us more, so, I wasn't nervous about it or anything. The only time I got nervous was when I was actually in the ring wrestling Baby Doll. She dislocated my jaw with a slap one time in St. Louis. And, she punched my brains out in Raleigh one night and just knocked me to my knees. So she was the Lubbock, Texas Women's High School shot put champion. So I think Baby Doll could take care of herself pretty good. I wasn't really nervous, but I had fun doing it.
And my other comment is, why do people like Vince Russo and like McMahon sometimes, they cut on your so-called, in their opinion, 80s wrestling crap? I'm a fan of the 80s. I'm a fan of the NWA and WWF in the 80s. And I think it, personally, when they say, oh, you're 80s wrestling crap, because that's what I'm a fan of. And I think,
and you grouped Vince McMahon in with Vince Russo. Vince McMahon's never said that 80s wrestling crap to me.
Oh, he said it in an angle years ago. I'm sorry.
Yeah. When I bumped into him when he was in his wheelchair, that was okay. That was tolerable. But with Russo, he doesn't like wrestling. He's not a wrestling fan. He wants to reinvent the wheel. And I'm not going to go off on a long Russo rant, but he doesn't like wrestling. He doesn't respect the wrestling fans. He thinks anybody who likes wrestling for wrestling is stupid, and that everybody should want to see boobies juggle and clowns and midgets carrying guns and all that kind of warped, perverted horse bedoodle that he puts out. And hopefully one day, he'll go in an outhouse and it'll be thrown in the back of a truck and dumped in a river, and they can have an outhouse match on the sandbar or something. That's his speed. That's probably the way he'd want to go out too.
All right, thanks for the time. Have a good night, guys.
Okay, we're gonna go.
You can really tell I'm just warm on Russo, can't you?
Yeah.
For another deal, like when we asked you about the boat. Remember if Russo was in a boat?
With Mark Madden and yeah, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I'd like to get on a barge floating down the Ohio.
Let's go to Dan in Chicago. Dan, what's going on?
What's going on, guys? How you doing? Jim Cornette. It is a pleasure to talk to you. I grew up watching you on the main event, watching you.
So did Brian.
Me?
No, yeah, you grew up watching Jim Cornette.
Yeah, I'm 28 years old. I grew up watching the main event on Sunday evenings. Enjoyed you annoyed the hell out of me at times, but.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's a first.
To be as obnoxious as possible.
Yeah, no kidding. My question is about OVW. How, you mentioned TV tapings. I don't get OVW out here in Chicago.
No, well, no one does outside of Louisville.
Yeah, that's we have a television show that airs every Saturday night at 11 o'clock here on the WB affiliate in Louisville. And as a matter of fact, the Run for the Rumble series really did great for our November ratings. We do about, usually about a 1.5 most of the time, thereabouts, which is very good for our station and also for our market.
Probably. So you're going Saturday night. So you're probably killing Confidential.
Yeah, I've not heard one person say to me that they actually watch Confidential, to be honest with you. I hope everybody does all across the country except in Louisville.
Okay.
But no, we've got a heck of a signal here. We cover really most of the Louisville area and central Kentucky. And the cable coverage is full, and the broadcast signal is beamed through a transmitter through two different channels, so we've got a lot of coverage here. You can subscribe, however, to the videotapes. A month subscription is $19.95 off the website.
Yeah, I'll go on
wrestling.com if I didn't.
On it later tonight. Got a couple of questions. One for you, Jim, and then one for Dave. Jim, how were you uncomfortable when they were shooting Beyond the Mat at all?
Actually, I almost whiplashed myself for 6 months trying to stay out of that movie because I didn't agree with a movie being shot about wrestling behind the scenes. That's like telling us how David Copperfield made the elephant disappear. I don't want to know. And every time I'd go around the corner and see a camera, I'd duck back, trying to get out of it. And finally, they badgered me. Here, just do something for the movie. So they gave me the lamest thing to do that could ever be done. Show the guys where to put their bags and tell them that they're wrestling second match or whatever. I figured, okay, this will make the cutting room floor. No, it's in the movie. So, I've basically ribbed myself there.
Right. But, and Dave, my question for you is, I know you really don't like rumors that much, but I read, well, it's not really a rumor, on OneWrestling.com, Jim Ross did a radio interview and saying about the return of Steve Austin, and Linda McMahon also mentioned that Steve Austin was a friend. Do you have any comments about that?
What Jim Ross said was that he would like Steve Austin to come back. He did not say Steve Austin was coming back, although he did say that he expected at some point that Steve Austin would end his career in the WWE. We've expected that, there's an inevitability about certain things. Steve Austin's a professional wrestler. Sooner or later, he's going to want to wrestle.
Right.
I don't know if it's going to be in 3 months. I don't know if it's going to be in 6 months. I don't know if it's going to be a week from Monday. But inevitably, Steve Austin will be back, and Vince McMahon will let him back. He you know, Vince McMahon always lets everyone back. Every time, you know, Jim and I have actually had this conversation before. Every time he swears that he will never bring somebody back, they always come back at some point.
How about the Raw, you know, thing that they're going to have in January? You know,
the 10-year anniversary show of Raw?
No, that's going to be at the World, right? Or something?
I don't know. I haven't heard where that's going to be. Yeah, and you may be right. I know that they're going to pick out a whole bunch of clips and things like that for the 10-year. Yeah.
Austin's going to be there?
I have no idea, and I'm sure that they don't have any idea. I know that they do want him. I mean, I know they want him back, and you know, and why wouldn't they? You know what I mean?
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Jim, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be back with more right after this break. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and we are here every Sunday night for 2 hours from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time with Wrestling Observer Live. And if you want to keep up with all of the professional wrestling news, there's a couple of newsletters that I highly recommend because we write them. Anyway, one is the Wrestling Observer newsletter with the most detailed coverage of pro wrestling all over the world. You know, we only touch the surface on what we talk about there. It's like getting like about a half of a book a week on the pro wrestling industry, and I know Jim Cornette reads it every week.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, also another lucky thing, during the break I was able to call and order the Hawkeye palm-held fish finder. I called quickly enough that they gave me a free bucket of live bait, which I was looking forward to because for Christmas I wanted the ability to find fish.
Wow.
Anyway, you can get that, and also it's at www.wrestlingobserver.com. There's information how to get that, and also to get Figure 4 Weekly, which Brian does every week. And anyway, you should get those two newsletters, and OVW or OVWrestling.com. We've talked about it a couple times, so you can get monthly subscriptions to the Ohio Valley television show. And in fact, those of you who complain about booking and complain about your intelligence being insulted when you're watching wrestling, you will see week by week exactly what good booking looks like on a wrestling show.
Thank you very much.
So anyway, the run for the Rumble was tremendous. You know, every week when that thing was over, you know, you had me wanting to watch next week's match and next week's show.
Well, you know, I appreciate you saying that, and that's, you know, what we try to do. The TV show here is my baby, and I'm really proud of it. And, you know, it made it easier to run for the Rumble with all those good matches with guys like Conway and Dinsmore, Machine and Damage and Nova involved. You know, it was an opportunity to go ahead and give them some time on the show and let them perform to their capability against each other. And, you know, so it was great to be able to sit back and call those matches, too.
You know what I liked is in the Dinsmore-Conway match, before the match, the interview that you did with those two guys, because Dinsmore and Conway, for those of you who aren't familiar, are Rob Conway and Nick Dinsmore, are a regular tag team. They're the top babyface tag team in Ohio Valley Wrestling. And they went in there, and instead of going out there and having a scientific match, I mean, they went in there and laid it out that they were putting their friendship aside, and the only thing that would not be allowable that they wouldn't do would be what, like eye gouge and low blow? Was those two things?
Eye gouges and groin strikes. That was the gentleman's agreement, and otherwise than that, they were going to play to their strengths. So Nick tried to out-wrestle Rob, and Rob tried to out-cheat Nick. And, you know, each guy played to his strength.
Yeah, so I thought that was really good because, and then when it was over, you know, even with Rob Conway loading his glove and basically wrestling like a heel, they shook hands, and, you know, they did not break up the tag team at all.
Well, you know, that's the thing is, with a lot of these guys here, you know, people talk about logical booking or making sense or, you know, not being far-fetched. Really, there's a tremendous soap opera and rivalry going on between the four guys in the Revolution and the Lords of the Ring. Doug Basham, Danny Davis's nephew, he was the first guy Danny ever trained. Nick came along. Nick was the second guy. And Doug Basham left the wrestling business for a while because he wasn't making any money, so Nick became Danny's protege. Rob Conway came along right after that, and Rob and Nick had a really personal rivalry over who was going to be best, and then Damager came along, and, you know, he could be the best one of the bunch of them, but he's only 4 years into the business. So, you know, there's so much personal rivalry that's really all based in fact and is totally legitimate. There's no reason to, you know, put the clown suit on anybody.
We're going to go to Savannah, Georgia with Jonathan. Jonathan, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I had a couple questions for you. First of all, I want to ask if there was any correlation between the Raw rating and Triple H's absence from the program.
I don't think that there's anything that you can judge on that at all. Because for one thing, they spent the whole show telling you, what I don't understand, and I don't understand, but they spent the whole show telling you Triple H was going to be there, even though he never did show up on the show. So the fact that And also, and I know you probably haven't seen the quarter hour, but the people really tuned in because it was the day after Survivor Series, and they wanted to see, I think, like all those titles changed hands, and they just wanted to go, look, let's sort out this mess. And they watched the show, and up until the Steiner interview, the show did well, and after that, the show died. So it's really, nobody should take credit for that show because, even though the rating was up, but I mean, a 3.7 is not a great rating for Raw #1. It's just great because it wasn't a 3.1.
The week was so bad.
Yeah, because the week before was so bad. Everyone's going like, wow, the rating's high because Triple H wasn't there. It's like, it's got nothing to do. If Triple H was there, the rating would be exactly the same as it was if Triple H wasn't there. It was, they just,
I don't think anybody purposely doesn't tune in to not see someone that they don't want to see. I think it's the opposite. People purposely tune in to see somebody they want to see. So
yeah, but I mean, I don't think that it really meant anything. If Triple H had not been billed as coming there, and the rating would have been like gigantic at the end of the show because people were like celebrating that Triple H is not going to be on the show, you could say something. But there's really, I don't think that you read anything. I can't read anything into that rating at all, other than the rating was thankfully up from the week before.
Right. Okay. I have another question about actually, I want to ask, what is up with Low Key and TNA right now?
Right now, they're not using him because Jerry Jarrett. I'll tell you what actually happened. Jerry Jarrett and Low Key had some discussions back and forth, and Low Key, and I'm just saying this, not having spoken to either guy, but being aware of what happened. Low Key's, fairly new in the business, and he's probably never met with a lot of promoters, and what he basically said to Jerry Jarrett was, I'll work anytime you want, but my priority is Japan. That's where and Jerry Jarrett took that as we got you to Japan, which is debatable. I don't know if they did or they didn't. I think he would have been in Japan either way, but it was kind of like he felt it was a slap in the face. We got you to Japan, and now you're saying that Japan's more important. So right now they're not going to use him.
Okay.
So
and my other question is, how long are HBK and Show going to be holding on to those titles?
No, we never know anything. We never know anything from week to week because they always change their mind. But I can't imagine either would be long term.
Okay. And one last quick question. I wanted to ask, what was it?
Gotta go.
Okay. Never mind. Forget about it. I can't even remember. Oh, actually, yeah, I do. Who is going to be cut? Are there going to be any more cuts in WWE anytime soon?
I mean, it's always talked about, but I don't know anything. I don't know any names imminent. The names that I knew, or the only name that I knew, which was Perry Saturn. It's already happened. So okay. I don't know of anyone else being cut. No.
Okay, but would you assume someone maybe like Raven or D'Lo, people relegated to?
What are you trying to get somebody fired now?
I don't want Raven. I don't want Raven to get fired, but.
Well, I haven't heard anything in that direction. I think. They're not using, they're not using those guys well, and
But there's a lot of guys they're not using well.
Yeah, and, I can't give you an answer as to why. They're just not. It's a lot of answers I can't give.
All right.
All right?
Thanks a lot.
Okay, we're going to go to Messina, New York. Don, what's happening?
Doing good. Actually, Jim, last time I talked to you on the show was one of the last few IATA shows. Two quick questions. Number one, with all the recent, probably maybe the last year and a half to 2 years, with all the developmental wrestlers that have been kind of tossed aside, who did you feel that really, you can name one or even, a dozen if you want to, who did you really feel that really got a quote-unquote raw deal out of the whole thing, really didn't deserve to be cut when in reality they should have been taking that next logical step? And two, who did you feel that got cut that really had no business to get a developmental deal?
Well, answering the first question first, I was sad to see Flash and Steve Bradley get cut. Because I felt like they definitely had something to offer and they didn't get the chance to show it. I don't think they didn't get a raw deal. A raw deal would insinuate they didn't get, paid up to their contract or taken care of or whatever. That's not the case. But just the fact that they did not get a shot to go up there and show what they can do, I thought those two guys were guys that they should have kept. And, hopefully that will change someday. They both left on good terms. So, the door's still open and they're both still young. I hate to just come out and crucify people who worked hard who didn't make it, but I'll say that a lot of the some of the guys from WCW that were in the developmental system when they absorbed the company that were all the cruiserweights.
Evan Courageous. Oh, sorry.
Evan Courageous.
You had
Brian Keck.
several guys that were the same size as Jamie Noble, so therefore Noble wouldn't stand out, and Noble was the best of that bunch.
Okay.
Also, a second thing before I hang up. Recently, you mentioned that bar that you wish Vince Russo was on. Your comments of the WF hirings of Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman and...
trying to get him going.
You can rant for the next 20 minutes, however long it is.
He only has a minute to the break.
Tonight. Actually, Eric Bischoff is a good promo, and in the fashion that he's being used, I don't have a problem with him. I just had a problem with him when he had the checkbook of a multi-billion-dollar wrestling business and was driving it into the ground. So as long as he sticks with a microphone in his hand instead of a pen or a checkbook, I mean, he's great. With Heyman, it's no secret, I don't see eye to eye with his philosophy on wrestling with that ECW hardcore and I don't see eye to eye with him personally because I know too many of my friends that he has lied to and or screwed over, and he owes me money still. But having said that, he's a great wrestling manager, and he's a good wrestling mind, and he at least is, from what I understand, part of the SmackDown crew that provides a good wrestling match.
Yep. Anyway, we got to go ahead to a break right now. We're going to be back with more phone calls right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here with Jim Cornette. And Brian, what's going on with Pride?
Well, I saw something I was not expecting, which was Yoshida beating Fry with an armbar.
Tell me about that.
Don Fry is the toughest man I've ever seen in my whole life because he was in that armbar and his arm was out. And he did not tap. He just sat there till the ref stopped it. So, that was very frightening.
Yeah. No, he's not going to tap. I mean, he's going to end up with, 2 broken arms and 2 broken legs. But
I actually thought his arm was broken, but he was, he had his arms up in the air and he was hugging him afterwards, so it couldn't have been that bad, but it was nasty.
Yeah.
And then I watched Sakuraba versus Gilles Arsene from France, which was the most boring fight I've ever seen in my whole life.
Really?
And, oh my God, it was horrible. I mean, it was Sakuraba was in no danger. It was like he was fighting. I don't want to make fun of anybody, but maybe Michael Cole. It looked like he could have beaten this guy at any time, and he just did nothing for 2 rounds. He was looking at his corner like he was completely bored. At the same time, he was making no effort to beat this guy. And then finally did an armbar in the 3rd round, and it was over. And no talk of the fight.
They didn't show it?
No, it's over now.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's really weird. Well, what I can tell you about that fight is the talk.
So fast that I missed it.
No, that was a long fight. I guess they figured that the American audience wouldn't understand the symbolism of that fight, but I've heard 2 versions of the fight. I heard it was a boring fight, and then other people told me actually it was quite a good fight, but the knockout apparently was totally devastating when Tamara knocked him out with a punch.
Wow. Yeah, they didn't show it.
Oh, man, I'm going to get that out.
Because that Gilles Arsene match was hideous.
Why would they not show that and show, the bin match?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know why? Because they're both pro wrestlers. And on a Pride show, that's you cannot mention that word.
Yeah, but if it's a real knockout, you'd think that...
I guess because to tell the story of that match, it's pretty hard to tell the story of, a 15-year program that every aspect of the story involves pro wrestling without using that hideous term pro wrestling during a Pride show.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing, Jim, I got to tell you, because you don't know about this. They had Bill Goldberg on their show 3 months back. It was the August show. And they introduced him as a former football player with the Atlanta Falcons. And not only that, but the announcer, Stephen Quadros, who's been a guest on our show, he emailed me and goes, Dave, could you write me a bio of Bill Goldberg? Because he's going to be on our show, and I'm not a pro wrestling fan. I don't know about him. So I write him a bio. And he's reading the bio. Right up till the point that, Bill Goldberg's cut from the Atlanta Falcons, the bio ends. And he doesn't say it. And what I was later told is they are not allowed to use the term pro wrestling on that show.
That's kind of the same as the WWE, isn't it?
I think they got Kevin Dunn.
I used to try to drop that dreadly word in a few times.
On that show.
That's kind of the same as the WWE, isn't it?
I think they got Kevin Dunn.
I used to try to drop that dreadly word in a few times in my television commentary, and I used to get stopped and had to do it over, but, you know.
Yeah, Kevin Dunn's secretly working for them. I mean, the reason that they can't say pro wrestling, here's the thing. You know this. In Japan, their audience is pretty much all pro wrestling fans. I mean, there's probably like, out of the 50,000 people there was at Tokyo Dome today, there's probably 5,000 martial arts fans and 45,000 pro wrestling fans. But in their like advertising in the United States, they go, if you're a fan of kickboxing, boxing, I think chess, amateur wrestling, you will love Pride. But they don't mention professional wrestling. And when I asked why, it's because, well, professional wrestling has this negative stigma. And it's like, yeah, but that's where all your fans come from.
Yeah, well, we want to stay away from that negative stigma, even if we have to stay away from the paying customers to do it.
Yeah. So anyway, they didn't show the. I can't. How do you not show the main event?
I don't know.
Oh well. Anyway, we're going to talk about something completely different. This is completely different. We're going to go to William in Houston, Texas. What's going on?
Well, before I get to my question, I just wanted to ask about the Observer.
Yes.
I can order that by calling 305-778-5844, right?
No.
305-778-5844.
Someone's trying to do a phone number. See ya. Anyway, let's go to Dale in Romeoville, Illinois.
As funny as ex-girlfriend, she dumped him because he's a computer geek and doesn't get out much or something.
Yeah, and he doesn't read the Observer, obviously, either. Dale, what's going on?
Okay, I just been out of touch with what's been going on in wrestling.
Well, then you should be booking WWE. Oh, sorry. Anyway.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Could you give me like some info on like what's going on in the WWE right now? Like who's champion and who's like
the champions, Big Show is the SmackDown champion. Shawn Michaels is the Raw champion. The tag team champions on SmackDown are the Guerreros, and the champions on Raw are Chris Jericho and Christian. And the Cruiserweight champion is Billy Kidman, and the women's champion is Victoria. Am I missing anybody?
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So they broke in the Raw and
Raw and SmackDown are separate companies, and they each have their own champions. Yeah.
So it's not, but still based on the WWE.
They're both called WWE. Yes.
You have been away for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, that's a long time. Yeah, it's been this way for 6 months now. Although the two champions is only a couple of weeks old, about a month, whatever. Ever since September, when Triple H decided he didn't want the Intercontinental title, so they had to create a new world title for him and bring back the old belt that Ric Flair wore for all those years.
And what's going on with Hogan? Let's see,
Hogan's on a book tour.
Hogan's on the book tour?
Yes. And
The Rock?
The Rock is filming a movie that is not called El Dorado, but for lack of a better term, that's what we're going to call it.
Oh, okay, sounds good. I appreciate the input.
Okay, let's go to SD Special Delivery Jones in Macon, Georgia. What's going on?
SD.
Hi, I have a question for Jim.
Yes.
Have you ever gotten intimate with a banana?
Let's go to Ryan in Winnipeg. Ryan, what's going on?
Well, wait a minute. I was going to tell him the story about these two people one time.
Okay. Tell him the story.
I won't go into that now. You haven't got enough time left.
Yeah, okay. Ryan, what's going on?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, hi. How are you guys doing today? Hey, Jim Cornette, how's it going?
Very good.
I've been a fan of yours for years and years and years.
Thank you very much. I'm starting to feel older every time I do this show.
Well, it happens. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on Paul Heyman walking down with the WWE title and all that sort of stuff. Is that blasphemy in the wrestling business for you?
No. You know, I'll paraphrase what Ole Anderson said to me one time. As far as Paul Heyman as a professional, as a manager, etc. goes, I used to think he was near, but there's been so many other people come along that are even worse than he is that he moved up the ladder without doing anything in my eyes.
Yeah. What do you think about Shawn Michaels and the Big Show having the title when Jim Ross says we're trying to push this new talent and they're just sticking with the same talent that they've had for years and like a couple of years ago?
Well, you know, I feel the same way as JR does. I think that they've got to get new talent and they got to get new faces and they got to get them recognized and get them popular. You know, if Shawn Michaels or Big Show now are holding the title, as long as it means something in their programming and as long as the matches were good and it was done in the right way, I don't have any problem with that. But then the next step is to have the next great superstar come and take it from one of them.
Do you think Vince McMahon likes Shawn Michaels more than any of the other top guys because he's let him get away with so much stuff through the years?
You know, I don't want to speak for Vince McMahon on who he likes better because, you know, there's been some people get away with things and there's some people that hadn't and he likes all of them the same. You know. But how are you going to pick your favorite, you know, children or whatever?
But there have been some wrestlers in the past that have said that Vince McMahon has let Shawn Michaels get away with murder in a way, and you were there through most of it.
Well, all I can say is promoters have always let guys who drew money and who sold tickets get away with more than the ones who didn't. But I think Shawn might have a championship belt in that category. But how much his affections lay with?
I'm a fan of yours, Jim, but how much did Shawn Michaels draw? I knew he's drawn more flies than Billy Kidman and less than Hulk Hogan, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I would put him in that category between those two.
Pretty wide range.
Yes, it is.
Well, yeah, I don't know. And also, before I go, you know how the WWE is known for the history of the sexual harassment suits? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know if Shawn Michaels has done any sexual things with any of the top talent, like Patterson or whatever?
I'm sure that Shawn Michaels in his time has done some WWE, but I don't think there's any evidence of that. But I must admit that Dave's getting a really good calls tonight.
Oh my God, we're going to Colonia, New Jersey with John. What's up?
Hi, I had a question for Jim Cornette.
Yes.
Who out of right now, first, I had a couple, but first, who do you think right now in OVW is the next to get called up?
Once again, that's it's hard to say. I don't want to call one guy's name and down somebody else, because right now there's been 6 or 8 of our guys that have been going up for alternating weekends, and like I said, Machine Doug Basham is the next thing to full time. So I don't think there's a next. I think it's a group, and I think that once again Conway Dinsmore, Damage it. Charlie Haas has done a tremendous job. Bad Dog has done a great job. All of the guys that I mentioned, they're all currently booked for some WWE house shows, so it's only a matter of who goes first, but there's another class waiting to come up.
All right, and my other question is it true that you said that when Brock Lesnar was called up that you didn't think he was actually ready?
Yeah, actually, it's true. I was afraid that Brock was not ready yet because of his speaking skills, which he wasn't real comfortable speaking on television, and I didn't know yet that he was going to... he really turned it on. He was a sponge. Once he got up there and started wrestling the next level of talent every night, his game really improved. And he's used to training all his life for the big match or the big tournament. So he stepped up to the plate and he did it, and I think he's done a great job. But at first I was worried because he wasn't a natural outgoing personality. But now you can see the beast come out in him.
All right, and I have one last question for Dave this time.
Yes.
I heard the rumor going around right now, I don't know if you've heard it, that because Triple H is going to come back as a face, tomorrow night they're going to turn RVD heel. Have you heard that at all?
I have not heard that. I don't think that's a great idea, but, nothing would shock me, but no, I haven't heard the rumor.
All right, well, because, it would make sense if they're going to turn Triple H face, they don't have a lot of heels on Raw, if you get what I'm saying. That's why I thought...
if they're going to turn Triple H face, you're right, they're going to have to, because the only other one would be, who would be the strongest heel that would be on the roster if he's turned? Jericho. So they probably do have to turn somebody, and Booker T probably isn't the guy.
Steiner, probably.
Too soon for Steiner. Plus, I don't think they want to tip their hand that he's on Raw yet.
Yeah.
Maybe Kane would be more effective, actually.
Yeah, but isn't he look like...
Although he's gone back and forth a million times.
Yeah, okay, good point. But, thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. We're going to go to Jerry in Los Angeles. Jerry, what's up?
Hi, how you guys doing?
Hey, Jerry, hold on just a second. We're going to go take a break. We're going to be back to you right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the final segment of the show. I want to remind everyone, because I actually was just in a conversation with him, Patrick Morrow's video game show is up next, and it is a small world. My fiance's best friend was on the plane with Patrick Morrow, we just realized that, going to the UFC over the weekend, and he was in the front row at the UFC watching Ken Shamrock get his face massacred. We are going to go to Jerry in Los Angeles. Jerry, what's going on?
Hi, how you guys doing tonight?
We're doing really good.
I wanted to talk about Hulk Hogan's new book. What do you guys think about that? That's my first question. My second question is...
I haven't read the book yet. I'm supposed to get it any day now.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I've read it. He leaves a lot of stuff out, obviously, like we all thought he would. He goes into a little bit about his feud with Macho Man, behind the scenes, and that was pretty interesting. My second question, too, was about Jim Ross on SmackDown when they showed him for that brief little clip.
Yes.
Is that a sign that he might jump over, like a heel turn or something?
I don't think so. I don't know. I have no idea what that was. I got no clue. But I don't think I haven't heard anything of him jumping to SmackDown. I guess that would mean Michael Cole would have to jump to Raw.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Okay, we're going to go to Carlos in West Haven,
I
Kenny.
just got to make one point real quick.
Yes.
I know I've never been sexually harassed by the WWE, but I know it's just because I'm hard to resist, but I think they knew I wasn't that kind of guy.
Let's go to Carlos in West Haven, Connecticut. Carlos, what's going on?
For heaven's sake.
Yes.
How you doing, guys?
Doing good.
Dave, did you read Roddy Piper's book yet?
Yeah, I did read Roddy Piper's book. I just finished it the other day.
What did you think of it?
I was entertained by it. There was some stuff in there that didn't quite jive, and I certainly can't say I agree with his perspective on everything, but I found it an enjoyable read. It was interesting where he was coming from. It's also interesting what he left out, in that he left out, like, pretty much after he wrestled Goldust, which was, I guess, his last big WWE match, WWF match. He kind of had, like, one confrontation with Eric Bischoff and one with Vince Russo, and the rest of that whole WCW thing didn't exist. I think he wanted to get that one out of it. It's amazing. It's like these several years, and he never, like, talked about it. It's like, but the stuff from his early days, I enjoyed that, especially when he talked about that angle that he did in Los Angeles, which I had completely forgotten about, and it brought back these horrible memories. For those of you who think that all the bad angles have come in the last 2 or 3 years, Roddy Piper, very early in his career, did this gimmick where he was a hypnotist, and they would have, like, Gene LaBelle was the announcer, and they would make a point that hypnosis was illegal in wrestling, and, like, behind the referee's back, I'm not making this up, he would hypnotize, like, people and then pin them. That's how bad it was. And he hypnotized Adrian Adonis, who was under the name Keith Franks in those days, to stop smoking. And then it got so popular, and it actually got over, that they would have Roddy Piper attempt to hypnotize fans. And he never could for some reason.
I wonder why that happened that way.
I don't know. They were out of their mind in Los Angeles, and that's why that territory died a brutal death a couple of years after Roddy Piper left, because Roddy Piper was able to pull it off, but those other ideas like the Monster, they were pretty far gone.
Well, speaking of territories that aren't going to die, I hear the music. I just want to plug one more time, ovwrestling.com. If you want to come to the tryout camp, even if you haven't ever trained or if you're an independent wrestler, go to ovwrestling.com and look up tryout and order the tapes. Buy something. All right, I want to also really quickly say, since we're totally out of time, I want to thank you guys for being here. And we did this whole 2 hours without once mentioning the phone number. That was my goal for tonight. We never even had to mention the phone number, and we had loaded lines all night long. We'll be back next Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Hope you all have a good week.